This is a film about an exciting 2-week Arctic rafting adventure down the remote Firth River to the ice-covered Arctic Ocean. Given its remote location, it took 2 days and a series of flights totaling 6,600 kilometers or 4,100 miles to get to Inuvik before the final flight to the start point at Margaret Lake on the Firth River. Our flight to the primitive airstrip at Margaret Lake on the Firth River started from the Inuvik airport. The Basler aircraft beside the Twin Otter was originally built in World War II and operates in the Antarctic during the austral summer. Our Twin Otter, built in 1976, was equipped with Tundra tires, which are large, low-pressure tires to allow operations on rough terrain. The de Havilland Canada DHC-6 Twin Otter is a Canadian STOL, or Short Takeoff and Landing utility aircraft, produced by de Havilland Canada between 1965 and 1988, more recently by Viking Air, which restarted production in 2008. It is a 1-hour flight from Inuvik to the start of the rafting trip at Margaret Lake on the Firth River. In total, 4 Twin Otter flights were required to bring in the 4 rafts, camping equipment, and people. Each flight cost about $10,000. Inuvik is on the Mackenzie River, which forms the longest river system in Canada. It was an amazing sight flying over the branching channels, ponds, and wetlands of the Mackenzie River Delta. The Delta, which is 210 kilometers or 130 miles long from north to south, is the second biggest Arctic delta in the world. The Delta empties into the Arctic Ocean. Leaving the Delta, we flew over many rivers flowing towards the Arctic Ocean, some of which had impressive horseshoe bends. After an hour of flight, we arrived at the rough landing strip at Margaret Lake on the Firth River in Ivavik National Park. The landing strip was generally flat, but there were many rocks on it as the strip is on a gravel bar formed by the river. Due to the rough ground, it was a bumpy ride taxiing along to the offloading point. Once unloaded, the plane rapidly returned to Inuvik as the day was young and other flights could be on the schedule. As the Arctic summer has essentially 24 hours of sunlight, nighttime doesn't restrict VFR flight operations. The campsite was on the Firth River where it flowed through off-ice. Off-ice is a German term meaning ice on top. It is a sheet of layered ice that forms from successive flows of river water behind ice dams or by groundwater discharged during freezing temperatures. Off-ice accumulates during the winter months and typically melts out during the summer. It often forms in the same place year after year. In the summertime, river fluctuations are a daily occurrence, as the daytime melting of off-ice is not seen on the river until after evening, so the river might rise at night. Also, due to the extensive permafrost under the surface, even a light rain can bring rapid water level rises, and floods have been noted from a very small rainfall. Although it can be beautiful to look at, off-ice can present a danger to boaters who can find themselves trapped between the walls of ice or pulled under the off-ice by the current of the river. Soon the second Twin Otter flight of the day arrived, bringing the final group of rafters and their baggage. In short order, the plane was unloaded and turned around for its return to Inuvik. With the departure of the second Twin Otter, we were on our own and ready to start rafting down the frigid Firth River to the Arctic Ocean. The swarm of mosquitoes at the campsite did their best to make us blood donors. The siksik, or Arctic ground squirrel, is prey to a wide variety of predators, including foxes, grizzlies, and eagles. The fossilized coral attests to the sedimentary nature of the geology. The Arctic has some of the most beautiful flowers, although they are generally small. Every summer, these small, colorful flowering plants, dwarf shrubs, herbs, grasses, mosses, and lichens come out from underneath the winter snow and bloom with the arrival of the Arctic sun. There is a wide variety of flowers that look similar, so identification is a challenge. Our 12-day rafting trip in the Ivavik National Park from Margaret Lake in the British Mountains to Nunaluk Spit on the Yukon coastal plain opposite Herschel Island in the traditional lands of the Inuvialuit covered 130 kilometers or 80 miles with an elevation drop of 410 meters or 1,400 feet. Our first day of rafting on the river took us from Margaret Lake through off-ice, low water, past muskox, to a rainy campsite near Crooked Creek. 2 people tested positive for COVID-19 during our rafting trip. Initially, some decided to wear masks, but soon everybody gave up their masks and enjoyed the great outdoors. The off-ice narrowed the river passage and changed the current in the river.
Fun, 6-pack.
Hey, you're wet.
Hey, I'm not going out.
In Inuktitut, the muskox is called a wingmak, or the bearded one. The muskox is an impressive animal, with the male weighing up to 300 kilograms or 666 pounds. They are herbivores with a diet including grasses and willows. Their predators are wolves and grizzly bears, especially during calving season. The name muskox is derived from their musky odor and from their superficial resemblance to the ox. However, they are closely related to the mountain goat and not cattle. The shaggy muskox looked like it just stepped out of the cave art drawing of it that was made 30,000 years ago. When threatened, muskox run together to form a circle with their young in the middle and their sharp horns facing towards the outside. This technique often is effective against predators, except for those with rifles. Muskox are one of the oldest surviving herbivores on the planet. While they have historically existed on the Yukon North Slope since the last ice age, they disappeared in the mid-1800s due to increased hunting pressure that came with a surge in Arctic visitors around that time. However, after a successful reintroduction 100 years later, muskox are once again part of the Yukon North Slope landscape, with some 300 animals distributed in small groups across the region. Further downriver, we came across 3 large bull muskox moving along the riverbank. Muskox have inhabited the Arctic for millennia. Their long shaggy hair is well adapted to the frigid climate. The outer hairs, or guard hairs, cover a second shorter undercoat that provides additional insulation in the winter. This undercoat falls out when the temperatures climb at winter's end. The muskox's inner wool, or kiviot, is stronger and warmer than sheep's wool. The muskox's remaining outer shaggy hair helps protect it against the swarms of flies and mosquitoes that torment animals in the summertime. We were lucky to see this survivor of the Ice Age during our trip down the Firth River. We stopped for a bit of successful Arctic char fishing for supper. It was a cool and rainy time at Crooked Creek, which meant wet tents to pack up in the morning. Rafting from Crooked Creek to Joe Creek was uneventful. Joe Creek marks the end of the off-ice reach and the start of the mountain reach of the Firth River. Fortunately, at the Joe Creek campsite, we were able to dry out our gear and clothing. The confluence of the Firth River and Joe Creek, its largest tributary, is clear due to the amount of silt being carried by the Joe into the Firth. Whilst talking to others in camp, I turned around and surprisingly locked eyes with a grizzly facing us only about 90 meters or 100 yards away. Fortunately for us, the grizzly was surprised by our shouting and turned around and ran off after deciding that there was no easy lunch available in camp.
Hey! Hey, hey, hey! Hey!
The grizzly, or North American brown bear, is impressive, with the male weighing up to 360 kilograms or 800 pounds. They are omnivores with a diet of both plants and animals.
Well trained.
Oh, I wonder why he's running away now.
The grizzly soon disappeared from view over a small rise, and when it was next seen, the grizzly was easily swimming across the frigid, fast-flowing Firth River. The ability of the grizzly to cross the river was very impressive and served to illustrate that a river doesn't serve as a barrier to a grizzly. With the grizzly rooting for food, we turned our attention to supper. In the morning, we'd resume our journey down the white water of the Firth River to the Arctic Ocean. In the morning, it was time to shampoo in the frigid Firth River as the sun rose over the mountains. Once past Joe Creek, the river enters a beautiful canyon where it is a series of calm stretches between exhilarating rapids. Snow white Dall sheep inhabit the canyon, and we were lucky to see some as we rafted along. As the porcupine caribou herd migrates across the Firth River at this time of year, we would come across caribou swimming over to the western shore. We stopped before the sluice rapids to walk around them, as the guides would take the rafts through them without passengers. There is razor-sharp slate along this stretch of the river, so the rafts mount a rug to protect the air chambers. The bright orange, elegant sunburst lichen grows on rocks. Having disembarked from the rafts, the first order of business was to walk over to the rapids so the guides could survey them and determine the best route through. Walking to the rapids, we passed over tundra that was festooned with fireweeds. The guides had no problem running the rapids, but it did make for an interesting spectacle. After the rapids, it was but a short float down to the Wolf Tors campsite with its traces of ancient peoples in the form of tent rings and knapped cutting tools. A view over the Wolf Tors camp showed why the ancient peoples established a campsite here. The Wolf Tors camp was very relaxing. The toilet even had an excellent view of the river. In part 2, we continue on down the river through a seemingly never-ending series of rapids, which makes for an entertaining ride. Along the way, we have excellent sightings of Dall sheep and caribou crossing the Firth.
Take me somewhere nice, to some tired island in your heart called paradise.
If you enjoyed this film, please subscribe and like. There are many more similar films available on my channel.